Hello, I'm Namo Abdullah in Washington, D.C. I'm here today to introduce you to a new book, Obamabomb. This is by Fleitz, a regular guest on Rudao, and he's a former CIA analyst. Now, today we will talk to him about the content of the book and why this book is very timely. Of course, this book is about the Iran deal, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to explain to us, first of all, the title. It's a very catchy title. What do you mean by Obamabomb?
Well, it's great to be here on Rudolph again. It may seem to be a strange title to your audience in Kurdistan, but this title is a play on something that happened concerning the health care bill in the United States, which has been nicknamed Obamacare. And what happened was that members of the Republican Party criticized this agreement because Nancy Pelosi said we have to vote on this agreement to find out what's in it, this bill to find out what's in it. Well, with the nuclear agreement with Iran, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, not all of this agreement was available to Congress before Congress voted on it because there are secret side deals that Congress wasn't allowed to see. And there also have been allegations concerning the Obamacare and the so-called Obamabomb plan that there was a somewhat deceptive effort by the administration to push it through.
So the same way, you're trying to say the same way that Obamacare is bad domestically for Americans, the healthcare plan, this way is as bad on a foreign, on an international level?
Yes, I think it's bad on both levels, and in both instances, these are Obama initiatives. They're major Obama policies. So that also was the reason for the title.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, we can assume that you argue against the deal, the Iran nuclear deal, in this book, and it's about 200 page long book. So tell us what, just if you summarize to us, what is the single greatest criticism of yours on this deal, on the nuclear deal?
Well, I want to say up front, I would like to see a nuclear deal with Iran, but one that actually addresses the threat from Iran's nuclear program. The JCPOA does not do that. This agreement allows Iran to continue to enrich uranium, to develop advanced centrifuges to enrich uranium while the deal is in effect. Iran is going to continue to have a reactor that produces plutonium that's being redesigned by China, and it's being exempted from oversight by the parties to the nuclear agreement. The verification is very weak, and frankly, in my view, this agreement was pushed through by the Obama administration in the United States, frankly, with a campaign that I think manipulated the news media and kept important aspects of the agreement away from Congress.
So now I'd like to bring in a recently discussed topic. The swap, the prisoner swap. The Wall Street Journal has recently published an article that it's not exactly what was initially reported. It was initially reported that the Iranians released four American prisoners, including Jason Razan, the Washington Post reporter, in return for 7 Iranians who were either charged or accused of crimes in the United States. But that wasn't all. There was more to it.
That's right, and 14 Iranians were removed from the Interpol wanted list. The problem about that is it is another example of deception by the Obama administration. $400 million was flown in foreign currency in an unmarked airplane. The American prisoners were not allowed to leave Tehran until this plane full of cash landed. Well, frankly, this amounts to ransom. The United States does not pay ransom concerning terrorism, but of equal concern, and this is something that's being talked about in Washington, it appears this was structured in such a way so the administration could say it was not part of the nuclear negotiations. Separate teams supposedly worked on this, and I think that was why it was not reported to Congress before Congress voted on the agreement. I think this is another example of deceiving the American people about this agreement.
So you believe, you call it ransom, that $400 million that the Obama administration sent to Iran. the Obama administration denies that. But why do you really call it ransom? And why, what is wrong with the Obama argument that this was Iran's money?
Well, the Obama administration is saying it's Iran's money, and the fact that this money landed in Iran when the prisoners were released is a coincidence. Well, an American comic recently said that people are calling this ransom because they know what the word ransom means. The Justice Department tried to stop this transfer because they thought it looked like ransom, and the Iranians have called it ransom. And you know the expression in English, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Right, yeah. So now let's talk about both candidates, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and their views on this nuclear deal. So obviously Hillary Clinton will keep the deal. Donald Trump says, he said two things. First, shred it into pieces shortly after he assumes office, or renegotiate the deal. So tell us about your views of these two different perspectives.
Well, Hillary Clinton helped set this deal up, and she strongly endorsed it. She named the negotiators that brought it about. She endorsed key concessions in 2010, as I explained in my book, that led to this agreement. I don't think she'll back away from it. I am hoping if she wins the election, she will agree to additional sanctions on Iran in response to its missile launches. And I mean, right now it looks like she will win the election. And I think people need to be talking about how to work productively with Mrs. Clinton if she's president. But frankly, she's going to stick by this deal, and I think that means Iran is going to move closer to a nuclear weapon. Trump, as I understand, has said he will not tear up the deal. He wants to renegotiate it, and he may send it back to Congress. But I believe his strong criticism of the deal means that if he's president, the deal will end, and there will be a renegotiation process. I have listed in my book 10 principles to guide such a renegotiation. And my view is this deal is so fraudulent, it sets such a bad precedent for international relations, it really should be torn up, and the United States and its allies should start over.
So your preference is the abolition of the deal, not renegotiating?
It should be abolished. The U.S. should begin a new process with its allies to put together a deal that actually stops Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons and does not reward it for terrorism and destabilize the Middle East.
Okay, Fred, now I would like actually to be the devil's advocate. Not quite, but somebody like Colin Powell, he's a Republican. He has supported the deal. He says for 10 years, the United States increased sanctions on Iran or had sanctions on Iran, but that didn't only fail to prevent Iran from getting close to building a weapon, but actually, he quote unquote, he said Iran was on a super highway with no speed limits, to an extent that Iran was only 2 months behind from building a weapon. So what's your feasible alternative to this deal?
Colin Powell's a good man, but as John Bolton, my former boss, writes in his book, Surrender is Not an Option, Powell really went off the rails about Iran when he was secretary. Powell really went off the rails when he was Secretary of State by backing negotiations to get a deal with Iran that went nowhere. The Iranians took advantage of us, the European Union took advantage of the United States, and I might add that Colin Powell backed President Obama for election and re-election, and I think he's part of the Obama camp. Powell's done good things for the United States, but I think in terms of his view of dealing with the Iran nuclear program, he's been consistently wrong, and I think Bolton has documented that. The argument that this deal puts Iran further from a nuclear weapon is really not accurate, because Iran gets closer to a nuclear weapon every day this deal is in effect, because Iran will be perfecting its capability to enrich uranium by the fact it's allowed to enrich with over 5,000 centrifuges and develop advanced centrifuges. It will emerge from this deal with an industrial scale nuclear program capable of producing many nuclear weapons.
Right, but if we didn't reach this deal last year, then and wanted a better deal, as you say, Iranians wouldn't have probably accepted it, and then they could have achieved the weapon.
Well, see,
in 2 months, there were like 2 months left for them to get it.
Well, the problem is this deal legitimizes Iran's nuclear program. Companies that provide nuclear technology now are free to sell Iran as much nuclear technology as it wants. Iran could have multiple plutonium-producing reactors in a few years, which I think is very dangerous. Can we stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon? I admit that's going to be difficult, but this process ensures it will have many, many nuclear weapons in the future. There should be strong sanctions on any company that sells nuclear technology with Iran until it stops processes with weapons applications and answers all questions about its past nuclear weapons-related work. This agreement shut down the IAEA's investigation into Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons. It shut it down. So I think that these were unacceptable concessions.
Also, some other people have said, they're critical of the deal, not just because of the deal per se, but because of what the deal could do for Iran. That deal, of course, unfreeze like billions of dollars in assets for the Iranian government, and a huge chunk of that money could be used to fund terror groups, to fund the Assad regime in Syria, and could be used by Iran to engage in destabilizing activities in the Middle East. Why don't you talk about that?
I think these are also important issues. I go into this in the agreement. We were told this agreement would help bring Iran into the community of nations and improve U.S.-Iran relations. What happened after the deal? There's been a 90% increase in Iran's military budget. Iran sent troops into Syria, not just support of the Hezbollah, it sent troops into Syria. Iran has sent boatloads of weapons to the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Iran has launched missiles written on the sides of some said Israel must be wiped off the map. Iran's behavior has gotten worse, and I think it's been emboldened by this deal because it thinks it's in the driver's seat in the regional security situation because it bested the United States.
So do you believe if there were a tougher administration instead of Obama administration, they could have made Iran's a behavioral change for Iran in the region as a precondition for this deal? Because Iranians needed this deal so bad. Their economy was really bad, was struggling. So they needed the deal. The United States, if there were a tougher administration, they could have, changed the way Iran behaves in the Middle East, didn't they?
I think that's right. I don't think Iran has any fear of this administration, and I think the Iranian mullahs have known from day one that President Obama was desperate for a nuclear agreement. And I mean, the president has written to Supreme Leader Khamenei, and one of these letters, which was sent in the latter stages of the negotiations, seemed to say that if you make this deal, we'll partner with you and we will not oppose the Assad regime. So I think the Iranians have realized all along that, frankly, this is a great opportunity for them to strike a great deal without any fear of any military attack from the United States.
Just one final question about your book. What else does your book talk about? Apart from, does it talk about the, how this deal could make Iran a hegemonic power in the region?
I talk about that, but one thing I try to get into, I try to talk about how the agreement came about, what's really in the agreement, what major concessions were made, especially on uranium enrichment, and how they came about. The fact that this was a long process. There's some people who say that the negotiations to strike this deal began in 2013. I think they really began in 2009.
Definitely recommend it to all of our viewers to buy it and read it extensively, because it definitely offers an alternative voice to the voice that we hear from a lot of other authors who support the deal.
Thank you.
So